Gorilla Monsoon.
And I'm thankful that I'm not.
Oh, you just can't help yourself, can you, huh?
I don't help anyone.
Huh.
Unless they've got the cash.
Yeah, I'm going to help you out the door if you don't stop.
If you can fit
anyway,
through
folks,
it.
hey, I'm going to knock you out.
Excuse me, but, is anyone going to introduce me, bro?
All right. And this is Vince Russo.
I thought it was the mailman.
Huh. Why don't you be serious?
Smells like one.
Well, what the frig, bro?
All right, enough. Folks, coming up in just a short is a podcast hosted by two guys you've never heard of and probably never will.
Monsoon knows a guy who knows a guy, if you know what I'm saying.
I get it.
Oh, will you stop? Folks, Chris and George or something, they do the Hot Tag Podcast, and here it is.
I actually could not have timed that any better, and I don't even know how I did it, but what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hot Tag Wrestling Show. I am Crazy Francesco. George Rogers is here with us. But by the way, do you crack up as much as I do when you hear Gorilla Set coming up in a short?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I like it. But, of course, Mr. Russo has to come in and ruin everything. But nonetheless, George, not that much has been happening in the wrestling world, has it? In the last couple weeks?
It's been a dull time. There's no news. I'm just a bored man. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing exciting. I don't even understand how we're even still going on.
I know. How have the doors not completely shut? But, not to completely just keep joking around. Let's kind of talk about it. 2 weeks ago, almost, to the day, of course, 2 weeks and a couple days, the wrestling world was turned completely upside down in Chicago, Illinois, during Survivor Series War Games, George, where the return of
R-Truth.
Yes, R-Truth. That's correct. I guess you could say over the last maybe 10 years, the most controversial pro wrestler in the last generation, I guess you could say, right?
Like the actually legitimate controversial name, not what they used to call John Cena when he would get cheers and boos.
Yeah, I mean, like a legitimate industry.
Legitimate controversial figure.
Yeah.
Not named Vince Russo.
Right. CM Punk, man, made his return to Survivor Series 2 weeks ago, and it was brilliant. I mean, the whole thing was completely brilliant, how it was done. The fact that, most, I'm not going to call them journalists because anybody that writes about wrestling is not a journalist. You're not. You're just a blogger who, thankfully and luckily for you, good job, got the gig to cover pro wrestling, but you're not a journalist. You make shit up for a living. It was said that that CM Punk had no talks with the WWE, so much so that it was reported multiple times, yet they will tell you that they didn't report this, but multiple people that cover wrestling said that TKO and USA Network had said, no, we don't want anything to do with CM Punk. It's not happening, blah, blah, blah. And it came down to the fact that on Sunday, I believe Sean Ross Sapp, maybe even WrestleVotes reported this. I know Meltzer said, there was no discussions between the two camps being CM Punk and WWE, is that, look, if it does happen, then it was, and if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But if it does happen, it's the biggest kept secret in the history of pro wrestling. Of course, that's typical dirt sheet scam artists covering their ass on both sides of the coin, because most of what they report, 95% of it, is all bullshit, rumor, and innuendo. So on one hand, it was never going to happen. But on the other hand, if it does, it's the best kept secret of all time. Well, it happened mostly to when we thought it wasn't going to happen. By the way, if you're joining us now, the wrestling is boring tagline. We were just kidding. That's just something we were talking about in the top of the show. Just don't worry about it.
It's a swerve, bro.
It was a swerve, right? So not only did we get the return of Punk, we had the return of Randy Orton, which is tremendous. He's now exclusive property of the SmackDown brand, which we all know really isn't a thing, but I guess right now it'll be a thing. Dismissive wanking gesture. So George, I'm going to go to you first, man. CM Punk is back. What does that mean to you? And more importantly, what do you think that means to, I guess, the trajectory towards WrestleMania?
To me personally, it doesn't really mean too much because we basically went through the last 10 years with a pretty minimal dose of CM Punk. He's been out of the mainstream company, WWE. I mean, yes, he returned to AEW to a massive ovation, which is also big news when he returned because it's a big return to wrestling after 7 years. But as things in that company are run worse than a I don't even have the words. A circus with no ringmaster. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Punk ended up leaving that company or getting fired, which something legally we can't talk about, but you actually can talk about it if you come out to the crowd and just tell the entire crowd in the town you're in what happens. But legally, you can't say anything on a podcast. But thanks for asking me about Wembley. Yeah, nobody asked. Asked.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's big. It's huge to the coming to WWE because, I mean, whereas like yes, like the product is slowly turning around to something that you kind of want to see on a weekly basis. There are
Yeah.
still some dull parts to it, but you can see that there is some sort of change in the air, mainly because Triple H is 99% in charge of creative.
Yeah.
There's no Vince around, which was the big reason why CM Punk did come back, is because Vince McMahon is completely
Agreed.
out of the equation. Um, but heading into this WrestleMania season, I mean, you've got the Rumble coming up next month that we can pretty much assume Punk is probably going to be a part of. I see no reason why he wouldn't be in the Rumble match or even winning the Rumble match, considering what we're already seeing with him and Seth kind of taking little, not so subtle, but still kind of sort of subtle jabs at each other.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's all leading to something. I don't think they're going to rush this to the Rumble because it wouldn't make any sense long term wise, unless they are going to do Austin versus Punk, which I'm not even going to register that until there's something concrete to actually go on aside from, well, they say Austin wants to do it, but Austin can change his mind at the drop of a hat. So there's no real, you can't really go too much on that. But you get a 3-month build on Punk and Rollins to WrestleMania, that's money. So you're already going into this WrestleMania season knowing that you have Cody and Reigns part 2 and then Punk Rollins. That's, I
Yeah.
mean, if those are your main events, it's a guaranteed sellout at Lincoln Financial.
Well, it's definitely gonna be a sellout regardless. I mean, Philadelphia, loves their wrestling. They've been waiting 25 years for a WrestleMania to
Yeah,
return.
less
Uh,
than WrestleMania 15.
yeah, for sure. And so let's kind of rewind to what you said in the beginning. I think a lot of this kind of gets lost in a way, and I haven't heard much said about it, but we are seeing the effects in a positive way of Vince McMahon not being around and not being in charge. And that would be, Vince McMahon was still around. There's no way in HE double hockey sticks that we would see CM Punk back in the WWE. I mean, they went through a big lawsuit together. There was so much bitterness, so much hatred between the two parties that if Vince was still in charge, you'd never ever see CM Punk back under the WWE brand. But Triple H said something pretty poignant in his Survivor Series post-show press conference, saying, if you're the same person you were 10 years ago, either in any way, then you're missing out. You're not growing as an individual. And the fact that Hunter took time and to make it a point that Punk's a different guy than he was 10 years ago. If we pay attention to a lot what happened in AEW, fact or fiction, we don't know if Punk is a changed guy. But look, like you said, things are ran a little bit different in the E than they are in AEW. But Triple H said, "I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm not the same businessman I was 10 years ago." So this seems to be, on the surface, a different CM Punk, a different Phil Brooks, and it seems that while Triple H is not Vince McMahon, he has adopted the idea, which is perfect, is it's what's best for business, is bringing CM Punk back, and clearly it is. Then what the hell? Have a conversation, see if it works, see if there's interest, see if you guys can hash out some issues, which reportedly they definitely did.
Mhm.
And here we are on December 5th. CM Punk is full time back with the WWE and seemingly headed for, I guess, a night one main event against Seth Rollins. Um, Pretty wild, man, how this all came about. Um, what was your thoughts, I guess? What was your reaction? I mean, I was with you, but
Yeah.
everyone that's watching or listening was not. Your reaction when you heard that static and then, Living Color hit that screen at the end of Survivor Series?
I mean, the three of us, you, me, and Dean, we sat here in my house and we watched pay per view, and we thought that was it. The little copyright claim came up in the bottom of the corner, and we're like, oh, so I guess no Punk. And then I think like Dean
Mhm.
started to get up, and then the static hit, and the three of us just
Yeah,
kind of paused where we were, and then just screamed out at the same time that
yeah.
we completely. And then I remember the big thing I think that we were happy about was the fact that everybody got it wrong.
Yep.
Like the dirt sheet writers got it wrong, and you can tell that it bothers them. You could tell if
Mhm.
you saw every report for the last couple days after Survivor Series. It was, oh well, it was an 11th hour deal. Uh, if you know anything about business and considering everything that's kind of transpired, there is no way in hell this was an 11th hour deal.
Right.
There was already a new shirt up on WWE Shop literally after the end of the pay per view.
Yeah,
Living
exactly.
Color did a remastered version of Cult of Personality that came out the day before.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff doesn't just happen over the
No,
course of a couple days.
no.
This is something like, and this is what I told a couple people at work. I was
Mhm.
like, the deal has probably already been done, but we aren't going to know anything until day of,
Of
because
course.
that's how it's going to go.
Mhm.
Uh, Sap knew nothing. Meltzer, I mean, he already knows nothing, but he knew even less than he does now.
Right.
Alvarez knew nothing. Keller, none of them knew anything. And then, like the next day, it's like, oh, it was 11th hour deal. Now they're acting like they have all this inside knowledge.
Right.
And if you look at a lot of the reports, is it's the backstage area is everyone's happy, it's positive, but then they throw in that little oh well, that's how it is for now. We'll see. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I
Mhm.
am. Prior to AEW or Punk
Mhm.
going to AEW, I don't seem to recall Punk ever having any locker room issues with the boys. Punk's issues were always with the creative and upper management. Like the other wrestlers, from what I understand, kind of they all got along to a point. And even in
Mhm.
ROH before he came over to WWE, there was never any of this talk about this guy's a locker room cancer. But now he goes to AEW. Obviously, things went massively sour there.
Yeah.
Now there's this false narrative that's going around. Oh, Punk is a nobody. Punk doesn't want to work with anybody. He's the hardest man. You can't get anything going. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. None of this stuff was a thing before he
Mhm.
went to AW. He goes to AW. That locker room itself has no leader. There's nobody running that company. People literally just do whatever they want. And to someone like Punk, it's
Mhm.
unprofessional. So obviously he's going to
Right.
have problems with it. Because,
Mhm.
like, yeah, his name is Punk, but let's be honest, he's a professional first and foremost.
Mhm.
Nobody in that company is a professional, and if they are, they're not getting their advice listened to at all. I mean,
Yeah, or they're just, like a guy like a Jericho. They're all like kind of part-timers or guys that are just there. You see Moxley, he doesn't care what goes on as long as that direct deposit works and he gets to, you know, stick whatever chopstick in his forehead.
yeah.
He's
I mean,
happy. That's a
Jericho,
problem
as
over
long as
there.
he's getting paid, and he's probably just hanging out with Tony most time anyway, doing
Yeah.
trading off on cocaine bumps, and the young bucks. We know they're just constantly in Tony's ear while also stirring shit up in the locker room in general.
Mhm.
It's it's bad all over in that company.
Right.
And even what I'm hearing now, there's a lot of negative talk backstage in AEW that it's not a good scene back there nowadays. But
Yeah, so I looked, and when it came out a couple days later, that discussions between the WWE and CM Punk were um like happened almost 2 weeks prior, 10 days prior to the Survivor Series. That's when all the conversations happened. And that's when a deal was struck, which is why, t shirts were ready to roll minutes after the Survivor Series.
yep,
So, again, that's not a 24-hour thing. These things do take time. So, that's where it was. And the fact that we found out that it happened 10 days prior is tremendous. And the fact that Triple H also said, look, three people knew: CM Punk, Nick Khan, and himself. And that's how it worked. Was that's why it worked. It didn't leak out to anybody else. That's why every dirt sheet writer or every reporter, people from Sports Illustrated were reporting that, look, CM Punk's not coming to the WWE. The fact that we were all, and I say this in the most positive way, we were all worked to the bone on this. And that's the way wrestling should be. Like, 12 years ago when Brock Lesnar returned during that John Cena promo, nobody knew. Nobody knew Brock was back with the company. Um, when AJ Styles came into the company, um, at the Royal Rumble. Nobody knew. And, this is what keeps it's great that we know now that in 2023, these things can still happen. Because one, we know Punk was never going to go to social media and announce anything. He doesn't do that kind of stuff. Obviously, Triple H wasn't going to do it. And, Nick Khan is, kind of like that faceless guy who runs the ship over there with the WWE. So the fact that this was a surprise for all of us, so like, I wish we had, a camera at the house that we were at when we were watching Survivor Series. We were all legitimately, our jaws dropped, dumbfounded, because again, this is Triple H. This is why he's so brilliant, and he's, the mind of a wrestler, because he was one. You had that copyright show up at the bottom right hand side of the screen, signaling that's the end of the broadcast and we're out of here. And they're panning further away from the crowd. They just kind of look at the crowd a little bit. That, okay, Survivor Series is over, and we're all looking at each other like, damn, no Punk, but we got Randy. Randy was back, and that was awesome. You get the pan out, and then you hear the static, and I swear, dude, like we felt like we were in the arena, and we felt it. And it was like, holy mother of God, he's actually here. Um, so that was so cool, man. And like I'll ask you, George, as a wrestling fan, were you happy that finally, it's been a long time, finally something was kept a secret and we all were worked?
oh, I loved it. Oh, it's fantastic. Like, you, people obviously like hate to be fooled or like be made a fool of, but
Yeah.
it for something like this, it's fantastic.
Hmm.
Nothing was leaked out. Nobody knew. It was conflicting reports. Punk was trolling everybody on his social media.
Mm-hmm.
He put up his workout regimen and he said he burned 666 calories, which was supposed to be an allusion to him being the devil in AEW. But at the same time, he's playing War Pigs on the story. So, and that was the theme song for Survivor
Yeah.
Series. He was working both sides of the equation. It was great to be worked and just to know that,
Yes.
hey, things can still work. Things, well,
Mm-hmm.
not in that term, but like you can still fool the crowd and make them love you at the same time. This wasn't one of
Mm-hmm.
those like, hey, number 30 goes off in a Royal Rumble and it's Rey Mysterio and not Daniel Bryan. Like,
Right.
whether you hate CM Punk or you love CM Punk, he was on the tip of everyone's tongue the next day.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody,
I mean,
and
go ahead.
like I said before, with them grasping at with the dirt reporters who are grasping at straws, what comes out the next day? Oh, there's that video of Seth freaking out at ringside because CM Punk is there, and they're like, "Oh, it's a goal." Like, I can't believe he would act like that. It's like, well, here's this trained wrestler, um, at the peak of physical conditioning, being held back by a 50-year-old commentator and his partner, who, while he is in shape, has a neck like a stack of dimes and can't take a bump to fall down. So if that's who's holding back my world champion, then I'm going to believe 100% this is part of a storyline,
Mm-hmm.
because then you would have had bigger, burly security guards, or I don't know, the other wrestlers that were still at ringside holding him back so he doesn't do something stupid.
That's a good
And
point.
then there was the video of Drew storming off. People were like, oh, like Drew storming off. What is that? It's like,
It was the
and
beginning of his heel turn.
I'm sitting there like talking to people.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's a heel and he just lost a match to the face.
Yeah.
So why do you think he stormed to the back? Like, this is not a hard walk down the road. It's like he trusts the Judgment Day to help win the match. They didn't. He stormed off angry. Ooh,
Yeah.
it's probably because he hates CM Punk. Yeah, that's what it was. Got him.
So let's kind of fast forward now, and you get to Raw, and we heard the promo, which we all waited 3 friggin' hours for. It wasn't the promo that we wanted. We found out why later on, that Orton and Dirty Dom ran a little bit late on their match, so you had to cut. Unfortunately, it was right before it was right before the end. So naturally, what's going to get cut? CM Punk's promo, which I was not happy about. It's been a while. It's now been a week since we've seen Punk and we've heard him talk. That promo left a lot to be desired there, in my opinion. And now I understand that 3 or 4 or 5 minutes was cut from that promo, which is a lot of time on television. 4 to 5 minutes is a lot. What do you expect? One, what was your thoughts on the promo? By the way, we did find out later that he did not sign a non-compete clause with AEW, so he could have said whatever he wanted on Raw. What was your thoughts on the promo, and do you expect to hear maybe anything more significant on SmackDown on Friday?
Oh, I mean, the promo was it was a basic, like, I'm home type promo. Coming as CM Punk, it's a little, obviously it's got a little more weight to it, because you wonder, oh, it's getting, everyone's waiting on bated breath for him to say something about AEW, and he didn't. By saying nothing about AEW, he did the worst thing in the world for them, which is act like they don't exist.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
that company, that's worse than being dragged on TV, because at least, hey, they're saying your name, so you're getting out there. But now they're not saying your name at all. You
Yeah.
don't exist. You don't rate. You're not fucking competition if
Mhm.
they don't mention your name. You know how it is, Chris, being sports fans,
Mhm.
as we are, when the opposing team or fans dog your team, they're paying attention. At least they're talking about it. There's competition that's there. You ain't even gonna talk about AW. It ain't even important. But Punk
Yeah.
Didn't say a lot, which is fine. Don't give me everything in one shot because then I'm not going to want to hear what you have to say next. Keep it short, keep it simple. It was what it was. It wasn't what I expected, but I'm also not upset about it because that's like, all right, well, I'll wait for his next promo or see where this is going to go. Keep them wanting more because that's how you're going to keep people tuning in.
Right. So then, what's your expectations for Friday night?
I expect him to just come out and just maybe cut like another promo, not like another like generic "I'm home," but maybe something about, hey, it's been a while since I've been on SmackDown. Maybe a thinly veiled shot at Seth. Maybe even a shot at Roman. He'll be on SmackDown. Maybe we'll have Paul Heyman come out in the middle of that promo. And you got Heyman and Punk in the ring for the first time in 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it could pretty much
could be
go
anything.
anywhere.
Yeah.
What are so okay, now let's move forward here as we'll get to the end of this one. Seth Rollins and CM Punk. So we assume this is where it's headed. It's kind of confusing, man, like where things are right now, because it looks like the Royal Rumbles, the I'm assuming the World Heavyweight title picture for the Royal Rumble is going to be McIntyre and Seth Rollins, based on what we're seeing, what just happened on Monday Night Raw. Maybe a triple threat with Jey Uso, McIntyre, and Rollins, because we know Jey Uso is not going to win the Rumble and McIntyre is not going to win the Rumble. So you might as well just throw them in a pretty fun triple threat match for the world title. I don't know anything like that, ladies and germs, but I'm almost kind of just fantasy booking that from 30 years of wrestling. I think it makes sense to make that a triple threat match after what we just saw on Monday. That's just, to me, it's the most logical scenario for all three guys. All three, one a piece of Rollins, or both two guys one a piece of Rollins. The one guy feels like he was stripped of that opportunity of a rematch. Jey Uso came close twice to winning the World Heavyweight title on Raw, and then was taken out and put through a table at the end by McIntyre. So it just makes sense for all three to be in the ring together at the Rumble. What do you do with CM Punk at the Rumble? Is it like one of those things where he comes in number 27, that lucky number 27, or does he come in 30? Does he come in earlier than that? And obviously, I think it's obvious to me. We know who's winning the Rumble again. It's going to be Cody Rhodes. Do you have them be the final two when Cody tosses out Punk after a fun battle at the end? Like, how do you get this going?
I think it goes the other way around. I think it's Punk that eliminates Cody to win the Rumble.
Wow.
Because I don't think they're going to have Cody do it back-to-back years. Cody did it last year. I don't see them doing it again this year. I don't see them I don't see them doing a repeat so soon. The last person to repeat back-to-back was Steve Austin. That was almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's no need to, because if you go into it like Cody's already declared himself for the Royal Rumble, and that's all well and good and fine, but we're going into, if people know that Cody is going to face Roman, having him win, kind of after everything they'd done with Punk, it just kind of undoes everything, where it's like, oh, well, this is exactly what we thought was going to happen. We thought Cody was going to win last year too, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of threw us off a loop because he came in number 30, which we weren't really expecting that, but I don't think Cody's going to go back to back. I think Punk is the one that eliminates Cody. And from what I'm understanding, or from what I read, the plan is for Cody to win the Elimination Chamber to get a chance to face Roman.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how they're going to do the number one contender for that belt, is the Elimination Chamber. I don't think you have Cody win it back to back. But I say you put Punk in a Rumble. You don't need to make him 27. Don't make him 30. We know he's going to be in it. You could throw him in at any time. I say throw him in 19. Why not? Or even 20.
Okay. So you're proclaiming right now, you think just like that, CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble?
Think of the pop in that arena. think of like the next night on Raw, ratings wise. Now CM Punk is your number one contender. Seth Rollins is your champ. What's
Hmm.
this promo going to be?
Yeah.
The story will kind of write itself. Like you
Hmm.
need a reason for Punk and Rollins to get in the ring together, aside from the fact that, oh, we just don't like each other. I mean, you could just
Right.
have. I mean, Rollins already saying no, he's a hypocrite. I ain't even gonna talk about him. I'm not. I'm not even gonna acknowledge him. Well, if he's now the number one contender for your belt, you have to talk to him. You have to acknowledge that he's there. This is the story. It's like we already know where Cody's story is going to line up to. It's leading back to Roman. There's nothing
Yeah.
more to expand upon with him. We know where it's going. All he needs is the way to get there, and Elimination Chamber could be the way to. It will probably be the way to do it. Punk now, you have Punk come back. He's been gone for 10 years. Have him win the Royal Rumble. Why the hell not?
Okay.
Especially
It makes.
if you announce Punk is going to be in the Rumble match, you're going to sell more tickets to that event.
I mean, that's true. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get that announcement soon. I mean, hell, I would even do that. Would probably be my Friday announcement.
Yeah,
Cut
why
the
not? Right?
promo at the end, declare yourself for the Royal Rumble, right? Because Cody just did, so you might as well just come right in, piggyback off of that, and do it. So do you kind of agree that we're probably heading towards that triple threat for at the Rumble where Rollins retains?
I could say it.
Yeah, I
You can't tell
agree.
me that wouldn't be a hell of a match.
Oh, geez, those three dudes can flat out go. So I have no issue with that whatsoever. Um, and then we had the other report. This will be the last thing, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be doing next week. The report came out that again, believe what you want to believe, but I can definitely see where this is going. Probably heading towards SummerSlam, since it was said to be a long term story. CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Of course, we assume by SummerSlam, Reigns that run will be done. He's going to most likely be losing his his undisputed world title at WrestleMania. If he doesn't, there's going to be a riot. I'm sure. I think people are kind of are really done.
In Philly, you can probably guarantee it.
Yeah, right. So, is this something you have them maybe billing all the way up through SummerSlam? Because we were told, it's what we are now leading to believe, and I'm expecting this is what's going to happen. I think Punk beats Rollins at Mania. Rollins is going to take a few months off. He needs that, I'm sure. Roman's going to lose at WrestleMania. He's going to take months off. So you got April, you got May, June, July, and then August. Do you see there being a CM Punk Roman Reigns at SummerSlam, or do you think they push that all the way to next year's WrestleMania? Where are you at in your interest level for those two? And when do you expect that to happen?
I think seeds will be planted for it. I want to say maybe Friday, just with Heyman coming out. You
Okay.
have, and then you can have Punk announce, yeah, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble match, and then you have him kind of look at him and be like, who knows which title I'm going to go for?
Mm-hmm.
Really just kind of get people thinking, oh, could he face Rollins? Could he face Reigns? We know that famous line, oh, make Roman look strong. You can definitely build off of that, since now that's something that's in the lore. But I think you
Right.
do. I think you do Punk Rollins first, and if you're gonna do Punk Reigns, you could build it for SummerSlam, or you could at least maybe at SummerSlam have Roman return from
Mm-hmm.
from his break. Maybe at the end, maybe after Punk, defends how we'll against him, but we'll just say Punk versus AJ Styles. What? Why
Mm-hmm.
not? I'd want
Right.
to watch that. That's a SummerSlam main event in itself. Maybe at the end of that event, then Roman kind of comes out. Maybe just kind of stares, walks
Mm-hmm.
away. Who knows?
It's a good point. I mean, it's super interesting what can happen now. It's about time that we have a WrestleMania where there's just going to be a lot of buildup for multiple things. I mean, if Brock Lesnar comes back and he's going after Gunther or vice versa, that's just three mega main event
So
style
let me so
matches.
let me ask you about this real quick
Sure.
while you brought that up. For Gunther and Brock, Do
Yep.
you make it for the Intercontinental title, or do you have Gunther lose the Intercontinental title before he faces Brock?
I think he should lose it before facing Brock.
I think if he loses it, it should be because Brock cost him the belt.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, that makes total. I mean, if you're gonna, you don't want Gunther losing clean
No,
through WrestleMania.
I don't
So
want Gunther
that's
losing clean at all.
no, he will definitely beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. That's Brock is a businessman first and foremost, but I think he also I'm assuming if he's going to work with Gunther, he respects the bejesus out of him. So, no matter what, the check is going to be the same for Brock Lesnar. I'm sure at this point he could care less about wins and losses.
This is what I would do for Gunther and Brock. I would have Gunther come to the ring with Imperium, and I have Brock come to the ring with R-Truth.
Well, okay,
Listen,
I guess so.
I go back to when R-Truth interrupted him and Heyman to declare that he was to say that he was going to eliminate Paul Heyman from the Rumble, and then he's like, "No, Brock isn't." He's like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to be in the Rumble then." And Brock was just cracking up in the ring. Like, just give me more of that. I want to see Brock breaking because R-Truth is doing some ridiculous nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. He's just popping in and out right now, and it's funny. All right, so that wraps up this week's show for the main topics. Just an FYI, we'll be back here next week. We are going to be getting into our Armageddon coverage. George has been waiting for this. So next week
That's
we're going
why
to be
I'm
covering.
waiting, bro.
That's right. Next week we're going to cover Armageddon from 2000. We are going to get in the way back machine, and we are going to cover go back 23 years, almost to the day, December 10th, 2000, in Birmingham, Alabama. This pay-per-view is incredibly noteworthy and famous because this is where the what was it? The 6-man Hell in a Cell match for the WWF title occurred. My God, what just absolute mayhem. Kurt Angle was the champion coming into this match against The Rock, Rikishi, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, and The Undertaker. Boy, oh boy, I can't wait to cover this one, George. What do you recall of this pay-per-view? Did you watch this back in the day?
Oh, I watched this. I watched this through the squiggly lines on the pay-per-view channel, but I watched it nonetheless.
Yeah.
I will say this about the Armageddon Hell in a Cell. It is a match that has never been duplicated since, and probably for good reason.
So why do you think that? Rikishi falling off the top of the cell?
The thing is with that match, if I'm remembering, now I haven't watched this match in probably, I don't know, 10 years or more since I've actually reviewed it.
Wow, okay.
It just kind of, you go back, you see things like, oh, I haven't watched this match in a while. Let me kind of, let me take a gander. I remember it being a cluster to kind of follow along with.
Kind of.
Because there's always kind of something going on in different parts of the ring. It's kind of hard to see that, especially when you have the cell as part of it for the gimmick.
Right.
But, I mean, it's an exciting match, but I remember it being hard to follow. I mean, I'll give it obviously, I'm going to give this a rewatch over the next couple of days so I'm fresh and ready for it. I also remember that horrible bad cover of Sweet Home Alabama that they used for the theme because the pay-per-view was in Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I remember the poster. It was like a drawn poster of like Undertaker riding his motorcycle, and then it had like the Armageddon logo. And then like in small print under it, it was like, Lord, I'm coming home. And I'm like, what? I was like, did you just put the part of the song and put it in the poster?
Yes, that's exactly what they did.
I remember seeing it on like the back of like the Raw magazine or WWE magazine, whichever. I mean, I was reading both at the time, so it really didn't matter. But
you have to admit, that was a pretty badass poster. I missed those
Oh man,
yeah, I missed those hand drawn colored posters, and I wish we could get back to that.
I miss
yeah, like what was it? The Royal Rumble 2001 poster. Dear God. That was just amazing.
Oh yeah, where they were in front of the. Like, it looked like they were on Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this has been the Hot Tag Wrestling Show. If you guys want to follow us at Hot Tag Podcast on Instagram, check us out there. Again, George hosts he's a co-host of a tremendous podcast called the Multiverse Movie Podcast. You've done what, 190 episodes already of that show, right?
It feels like we've only done one.
That's funny. What do you got coming up on that podcast, my friend?
Well, Chris, it's December, a time of giving and presents and Christmas. So we got holiday movies coming up. We just recently did last week, Violent Night was starring David
Which was
Harbour
a very fun, underrated movie.
Oh, extremely. If you like Die Hard, this is Die Hard. Another great Christmas movie. But we got the Christmas Chronicles actually coming up this week, which is a Netflix release from 2018, which for
tremendous movie.
Don't know why it took this long to get Kurt Russell as Santa Claus, but hey, here we are.
Here we are.
We got that coming up, and I believe the final Christmas movie that we'll be doing is going to be a Muppet Christmas Carol.
That's number one on everybody's list.
So it's number one in your hearts.
It has to be, right? All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'm Christy Francesco. That is George Rogers, or on this show, he is Johnny B. Blood. And we'll catch you guys here next week for Armageddon 2000. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.